On today's Star Wars Legends lore video, we talk about the secret children of Sheev Palpatine. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars Legends lore video. Today we're talking about some lore that admittedly has been discussed on YouTube before. However, I do think that I can bring sort of a fresh perspective and maybe some different information. So let's talk about Emperor Palpatine. And this old man has seemingly always been obsessed with children. As early as the Clone Wars, he was paying Cad Bane to abduct Force-sensitive infants. We see him predatorily groom Anakin Skywalker, and there are various other legend stories of Palpatine trying to mold young dark side users. With all that being said, you'd think that Palpatine would be eager to have some children of his own, not only furthering the Palpatine bloodline, but also creating his own army of sort of perfect warriors. This, however, wasn't the case. Nonetheless, the Palpatine lineage would become very important after the fall of the Empire. Some saw the Empire as a monarchy, with the position of Emperor moving to Palpatine's closest heir. Now, in reality, Palpatine secured his position through his immense power, and it's unlikely that any empire would have, at least in the long term, fallen behind a single person just because of their blood, but we'll talk about that later. As Emperor, Palpatine was said to have many mistresses and concubines. Interestingly, almost all of these women were also high-ranking Imperials in their own right, often advisors or direct assets to Palpatine himself. Issue 5 of the Star Wars Gamer magazine covers some of these individuals in some depth, the first being Rogonda Ismarin. Rogonda was a former Jedi who worked her way into Palpatine's social graces, eventually becoming not only one of his many mistresses, but also an Emperor's hand. At some point, Rogonda would become pregnant, giving birth to a child named Eric Ismarin, who features heavily as an antagonist in the Children of the Jedi novel. Although that book never definitively states whether Eric is a true son to Palpatine, he is extraordinarily powerful in the Force, even from a young age. Some, like Leia, do doubt his heritage, and later works revealed that Rogonda was also involved with another Emperor's hand, who was actually the father, rather than Palpatine himself. On a side note, Eric actually has a fairly interesting history. He was trained by the infamous dark side user Chronal, otherwise known as Black Hole, and would later become a pretty funky looking cyborg, but that's for a different day. It is very possible that there are unknown legitimate heirs born to one of Palpatine's unnamed concubines. In Isard's Revenge, Izani Isard gives us a quote which tells us not only that she herself, a high-ranking Imperial, had a relationship with Palpatine, but that he was somewhat of a ladies' man. Corran asks her, "Haven't you ever loved anyone?" And she responds by saying, "I have loved, yes, but I trusted that he would know if I lived or died." Corran eventually responds by saying, "The Emperor, you loved the Emperor," to which she says, "Captain Horn, the surprise in your voice is hardly appropriate. Is it any surprise that I would find myself attracted to the brightest star in the galaxy? I was raised on Imperial Center. I came of age during Palpatine's time. He was immensely charismatic. He could look you in the eyes and touch the person you were. He lived for his dreams of a stable galaxy." From that quote alone, it's unclear whether the love she had for him was platonic or otherwise, but as the dialogue continues, it's very clear that she loved him in a romantic sense, and it seems to me like they definitely had a physical relationship. This idea of Palpatine as a hyper-attractive, although perhaps not in the physical sense, star was present even in Heir to the Empire. Although Mara Jade certainly wasn't romantically in love with Palpatine, she was extremely attached to him and very loyal. This loyalty was not at all uncommon among Palpatine's servants. There were a lot of people who were obsessed with him, and it's very likely that this often crossed over into a romantic sense. Again, going back to Mara Jade, Palpatine literally gave her the perfect life, and she was devastated once he died. On another occasion, she was also incredibly distraught to find out that there were other Emperor's hands, besides for just herself. Based on my reading of the Plagueis novel, the idea of Palpatine as perhaps a playboy, but certainly a larger-than-life figure, existed not only as he possessed ultimate power as the Emperor, but also even during his younger years, when he was just a senator. However, despite all this, we don't learn a whole lot else about Palpatine's other concubines. And as the EU progressed, certainly into the early 2000s, I think this idea was brought up less and less. Still, we have the Jedi Prince, a series of 6 young reader books about a kid Jedi named Ken. I'll save you guys the time reading it. The stories directly concern the lineage of Palpatine and the Imperial throne. First off, we have Trioculus, who claimed the position of Emperor and heir to Palpatine. In reality, Trioculus was the creation of a scientific experiment. He was, however, handsome, well-raised, with his defining feature being a prominent third eye which produced a hypnotic effect, a supposed sign of being strong in the Force. There had long been rumors of Palpatine fathering a son with 3 eyes, which is why Trioculus was able to lie about his heritage. Although he grew up outside of the Empire, Trioculus gained the attention of several Imperial Moffs, who sort of propped him up as the heir apparent to the Empire. For those wondering, in the end, the 3-eyed mutant would be killed by the laser eyes of a robotic Princess Leia, who he wished to marry and make his queen of the Empire. And no, I'm not making this up. But speaking of Imperial Queens, I want to talk about Sly Moore. There's an interesting StarWars.com article called Barely Tolerable, Alien Henchmen of the Empire. Part 3 talks about Palpatine's well-known appetite for concubines, and the fact that as far back as the days of the Republic, many thought that Sly Moore and Palpatine had a more than professional relationship. By the time Palpatine gained the throne, many referred to her as the Queen of the Empire. Sly Moore would apparently die giving birth to a mysterious 3-eyed child. This child, however, was not Trioculus, his name was Triclops. Whether the child was sired by Palpatine, the Force, or someone else, we really don't know. However, in another StarWars.com article, we learned that the Emperor was personally disappointed with Triclops' lack of power and disposition towards pacifism, suggesting that he was in fact the true son. For what it's worth, Triclops himself, many members of the Imperial elite, and the New Republic Intelligence Agency also believed that the 3-eyed mutant was a son of Palpatine. Some of you may be wondering, well, did Triclops himself have a son? These characters must be extraordinarily powerful and important in the Star Wars Legends continuity. He did have a son, Ken, the protagonist of the Jedi Prince series, and no, you never see these characters again after these books. So Palpatine did have not only a son, but also a grandson and several claimants to the throne. The question is, well, why didn't he breed more? We know that he was always trying to create new dark side users. Why didn't he just make some himself? I believe that Palpatine saw any child of his as a potential threat to his everlasting power. He wanted to be the eternal empire. I don't think he wanted someone nipping at his heels. But that's just my thoughts. What do you think? Have you read the Jedi Prince series? Do you think Palpatine had other children? Let me know all of that and more down in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, this has been Eckhart's Ladder. May the Force be with you.